We'll go ahead and introduce, it's my pleasure to introduce Jody Avia. Jody was an occupational therapist at the Denver VA Medical Center. She has extensive experience treating veterans with ALS, prescribing advanced manual and power mobility, and services on the assistive technology team. Dr. Avia graduated from the University of New Hampshire in 2002 and received her doctorate in occupational therapy in 2014 from Rocky Mountain University Health Professions. Her love of the mountain keeps her skiing and biking and hiking in her free time. Randal Potter is a rehab technician that works at the Eastern Colorado healthcare system in Denver, has been working in this field for more than 25 years. He is currently both the assistive technology and on wheeled mobility teams. He's involved with prescribing complex seating, power manual mobility, and adaptive sports equipment and interfaces with assistive technologies. Welcome.
Thanks, Chad. Can everyone hear me okay? Oh, wow, this is a big room. All right, so we'll get started. So Randy and I, you heard our introductions, but we'd like to know who everyone in the audience is. So we'll do a little show of hands out there just to get an idea of who you guys are. So put your hands up. Let's get an idea of OTs out there, PTs, KTs, suppliers. Wow, I think suppliers take it. Anyone else I missed? I'm sorry. Good. Okay, the other question is, where are our VA folks? Non-VA folks. Wow, okay, good. All right, that helps us later on. So as Chad said, we're from the Denver VA. And I'm an occupational therapist by background. I feel very fortunate because Randy and I are on the assistive technology team together. And I'm also a clinician who gets to work out in the home. So I get to see the technology as I use it, but also the progression of our clients as they use it. So a very hands-on approach.
We're going to ask you guys all to move forward because we really want to be interactive with you guys. So we'd like you guys, if you would, move as far forward as you can get. I'd like to say that they're going to close half the ballroom off, but I know that won't do me any good.
A little bit on there.
We want you guys to ask questions and anything that pops up. Chad's got the microphone, so we just want you to pop your hand up, and we'll try to get those answered for you as fast as we can. If it's something we're going to do later in the talk, then we might tell you a little bit, but kind of hold off on answering the whole question.
All righty. All righty. Okay, so our learning objectives today. We really want to promote an understanding of the functional limitations of the ALS client. We're going to provide you with some evaluation tools for both the wheelchair and for an assistive technology evaluation. We'll go through the description of powered mobility, assistive technology, and their interfaces. We'll provide some case studies at the end to kind of show the progression of evaluations, and review some creative funding options at the end. So what is ALS? So ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, many of you know it that way, a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects the nerve cells of the brain and spinal cord that control the voluntary muscle movement. Our prevalence is most common in males between 60 and 69. And life expectancy for our prognosis is about 2 to 5 years. Are there outliers of this? Of course, but this is what we're looking at for our average. I want to take the time to talk about the different types of ALS. When we're talking about the diagnosis, it tends to follow these tracks. So when we're thinking of assistive technology and wheelchairs later on, this is important to kind of be thinking ahead of what we might see in our clients. So with limb onset, you're looking at the symptoms beginning in the arms and the legs, muscle weakness there, difficulties with walking. On the other side, the bulbar onset, clients typically show signs of speech difficulties, breathing difficulties, swallowing difficulties first. So to give a little bit further description of this, I kind of put it into a chart here to kind of show the two, to compare and contrast the different onsets. Now again, this is kind of what you typically see first, okay? So when we're talking about that limb onset ALS, muscle weakness. Now, when you see up here, 80% of motor neurons might be lost before first clinical symptoms appear. People are getting weaker, but they might not notice it. You might have an atrophy in your calf. Your muscles are getting smaller, but they're still walking. They're not falling. So that's when we talk about the prognosis, why this is such a rapid disease. You're losing your muscles before you even know it. Continuing on, you can see the wasting of the limbs. And even though you start with the muscle weakness in the arms and the legs, the development of the bulbar symptoms with the speech and swallowing and respiratory difficulties come on as well. When we switch columns over there for the bulbar onset, these are your folks that have the difficulties with their speech, the swallowing. They might say that they're choking in the beginning, drooling, breathing difficulties, as you can see on there. Did I cover everything on there? Okay. Okay. And this little fun chart, so we go back to what I said earlier. The typical onset is males 60 to 69, most common in the limb first. So the big red line, you see it high above the other lines. That's kind of the most common population there. Underneath, the lighter blue line is also males with a bulbar onset, and then followed the female diagnoses are lower on the chart. So how many people do we have with ALS? Recent studies show about 30,000 people are with ALS in the US. That's about 5,600 diagnoses a year, breaks down to about 15 a day for all you math people out there. In the VA where Randy and I are from, we see quite a few of ALSers. Veterans, regardless of branch of service, are twice as likely to have ALS in the regular population. So we see them. It is a service-connected condition. So a lot of people, even if they don't primarily have their care at the VA, oftentimes come into the VA for services, for equipment, for things like that. I think currently, just to put in perspective, we probably have 30 to 40 clients with ALS going through the Denver VA, and specifically in my home care population, I have 8 that I see regularly in the home. So it kind of gives you an idea of what we're seeing as well as compared to the national average. Okay, so what can assistive technology do for our clients? We're going to address all these points as we go through our talk today, but I can list them for you. We'll go over mobility, how these people are going to get around, postural support, are they comfortable, how to address that, communication, computer access, control of environment, and access to meaningful activities. So the big question and why you're all here is how do we do that? Okay, so when Randy and I put our heads together, and we can do a little show of hands of the audience, setting goals, we hear client-centered goals. Absolutely, we want to put our clients' goals first. But what happens, in a show of hands, when you have that ALS client? How many of you have had those people who are like, I have ALS, and they have that deer in the headlight look? Do you have people like that the client doesn't really know what's going on? So when we're setting goals, they're not coming in and saying, I want a red wheelchair with this feature, and I want to be able to access my phone this way. They're stuck. And as clinicians, we have our hat, how can we help them? I got to do this quickly. Oh my gosh, those kind of fears. So kind of aligning that. So as we think of our clients, a lot of this might be, you need the disease education to start before your goals. They might not know, or they might hear in that 2-hour neurology appointment that they have a progressive disease, that they're not going to be able to walk, but they just heard they had ALS and they didn't hear those other ththings. So disease education is so critical when we're working with these clients. There's a very different population. As a therapist, we want rehabilitative, we want to make it better. Well, we can make it improve quality of life, and I think that's what Randy and I think is our biggest goal, to improve quality of life throughout the progression of this disease. The other thing is the realistic wants and needs. I briefly just touched upon that, but kind of aligning, you see that clock there, and there's a little bit of a time frame here. Not even a little bit, I mean a big bit. And that time is always going down. Time is our enemy in this. We might have these great ideas, but if the time benefit, you have to consider that, of when you're training people, how long does that take? Will we be able to get them what they need in this time frame? Randy and I have a story of one of our clients that he came in October to our assistive technology team, and he was walking, and he wasn't sure why he came to see us in October. And we wanted to set him up with an appointment. And unfortunately, it got scheduled for February, but we changed it to November, and he was agreeable to coming in. We all know how long these things take. You know, if we had waited from October to February to see him, we're talking 4 months, plus another 2 months to get equipment. That would have been 6 months. Randy called him earlier this month to tell him his manual wheelchair was in. And he's like, I don't want to come in until my power's there. I need my power. If we had waited in this time, and where he wasn't ready, I mean, this was a gentleman who was walking 2 miles a day. He wasn't ready to hear that he needed a wheelchair. If we hadn't been encouraging and supportive of that, then being that educator, we would have been here without a wheelchair and a man who can't walk. So thinking of that, it's a tough population to be that educator sometimes, but showing that compassion is really our role as clinicians, as suppliers, really imperative there.
And to get into the client agreement, they have to understand that they have a need. That disease education allows them to start feeling that, okay, I'm going to need something. And if you don't have that buy-in, the abandonment of the equipment is going to be multiplied. We were with Jane Fontaine earlier today, and she said that up to 36% of our equipment is being abandoned. In this instance, if we get that abandonment issue happening, then their quality of life actually drops dramatically quickly. And they can't get into that agreement because they had that chair sitting there for that long.
Okay. So things that we're going to do when we determine our assistive technology needs, the goals of the client. We're going to have a thorough wheelchair and seating assessment. We'll take an inventory of their technology. What are they familiar with? What are they using? And one of the important ones, too, that we don't want to overlook is the quality of life assessments. What is important to these individuals? What's important to me is different than you and you and you. And so as we go on, and we have to prioritize needs, what's important in quality of life is really imperative to where we focus our goals.
This is one of our ALS patients. He's 32 years old. As you can see, positioning is going to be a huge issue for him because of his forward head. So we do a complete evaluation. We have a template that we'll share with you guys that we use. And we go through the whole thing from start to the end. We do not cut corners on any of these assessments.
And I think this gives us a lot of cues of where we are and where we're going with this. So this can't be overlooked. We're at a great conference to learn how to do all these seating evaluations. Okay. But we have some of our colleagues that we collaborated with that shared their evaluation form with us. We did upload this, so you guys can get this on the website. But we'll go over it real quickly to kind of get you thinking of what you should think of when you're doing these evaluations. Even if you don't use all parts of the form, it kind of gets you going to thinking about that, what environment are they using this in? I'm going to click on this before I talk too much about it so you guys can see. Let's see. All right. So obviously the demographics, who are these people? And their past medical history. But the nice thing about forms like this, it gets the home environment, and this is my little plug too. I'm very fortunate because I'm in the home. I get to see these things. And so sometimes we also know patient report and what actually happens might be different. So maybe even using these things, and before your first appointment, you mail them something like that, take these measurements, things like that. Because again, we don't have time to make errors. We don't have time to reorder a chair because it's too wide or we put the wrong part on. So I know there's probably a variety of people doing ordering here, but kind of things to think about. I mean, some of us have other people ordering the chair for you, but kind of getting our mindset all on the same page. Transportation, this will go on. It's quite extensive, this evaluation. Again, you can use parts of it, all of it. It'll set you up for your ordering of a chair.
One other thing that I like to say about this form is this form allows you not to have to do as much narrative work to get the pieces funded, even in the private sector. This evaluation forum has had a lot of thought and a lot of collaboration through the whole industry to get it to where it is. And they are doing another draft right now, and when that draft is finalized, it'll be available as well.
I think that's all of it. Okay. So, okay. So in talking about the wheelchair seating evaluation, what are some of the things we want to talk about? Posture. Taking a look at this gentleman, what do you notice right off the bat from him sitting there? Say that again? Okay. Posterior? Sacral. Okay, so a little bit, yeah. What about his breathing? What do you see right there? He's already on a vent, right. And what do you see that little tablet thing right in front of him? That's his iPad, yes, because that's what he uses to communicate. Absolutely. So when we take a look at this, we can talk specifically, we brought up some good points about the problems of his seating, but one thing to notice is kind of he is opened up. Everyone take a deep breath for me right now. Sit up tall and take a deep breath. Feels good, right? Now, hunch yourself over like this and try to take that same deep breath. Can't do it well. So looking at this posture in a man who has difficulty breathing, we want to keep him opened up. He's looking straight at me. He can also see his tablet, so he can have his communication, and he still has his hand function. He is bulbar onset. He had the respiratory difficulty. This man walks short distances as well, but he's using a standard joystick for driving. But all those things for the posture, where he needs to see, he's holding himself up. It's also you fatigue faster if you're hunched over. And anything else on posture? Okay. Want to do comfort?
On the comfort issue, we've found several things with our ALS population. For instance, the bulbar onset, we have found that they have a lot of back pain, and that if you use a contoured back, they actually experience more pain. So we're actually flaring open any contours that we've got on our bulbar onsets so that there is less pain. So comfort and pain management are huge for the fatigue factors. Anytime that we've got a comfort issue or a pain issue of any kind, they're fighting it. They're trying to stay erect. They're trying to do whatever it is to get themselves in a different position. That fatigue factor is increased. So we want to extend their day. So we're going to, hey Chad. Hang on a sec, let's get you on mic. So while they're doing that, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to decrease the fatigue so that their day is extended and they can do the things that they want to do.
With those patients that you have, I find that they are very rounded, either kyphotically or just kind of a hunched over posture, and those spinous processes become very, they get pressure sores there. How do you guys then, without a contoured back, kind of offset the pressures there?
We've been able to do it by using different foams. The piece that we're finding that creates most of the pain issues is actually the rib of the pan. So what we're doing is we're adding foams. So we're trying to maintain the contour without using a pan, basically is what we're trying to do. We've got a couple that we've done some really neat multi-foam layered laminations to create a space for them to lay into. And we're getting that support that you're talking about, but yet we have no pan that interferes with it for that pain onset. Well, we didn't go back one.
Oh, sorry.
Also, we're finding out, originally when we first started doing a lot of ALS in 2008? 2008 is when it became a diagnosis at the VA that they paid 100% for.
Or 12 was 100%, in 2008 it was 30%.
Okay. But 2008 is when we started seeing our clientele pretty heavily. we would only prescribe the tilt. And the reason we would prescribe the tilt was because we could keep them in better posture. But again, going back to that pain piece, we are actually finding that more movement allows them to have less pain. So we're on not all of our clients, but on a lot of our clients, we are now having all of the functions happen so that we can keep that pain level down because they get to move a little bit. And that little bit of movement allows the pain level to be decreased tenfold. So.
And I know we have mixed folks. We're fortunate in the VA that we can get recline and some of these other features that increase comfort, you know, and when we talk to our suppliers, you know, sometimes it's that conversation of what, you know, if we know that there's a high pain or we're knowing this tendency of bulbar needs the recline for comfort, some people will look to pay out of pocket for some of these additional features that aren't covered at that time for comfort. So for those non-VA people out there, we'll try to address those needs too.
And that goes a lot with like what Rory was saying, Dr. Cooper was saying this morning. You know, his original quickie chair, he had to pay out of pocket for. And so we are going to have to start making that happen in the funding industry for them to recognize the things that we do and the impact that we do have.
Good.
Another question, guys.
Sure.
Have you guys tried biangulating the backs at all a little bit to open up the shoulders? On some of my patients, I've been able to almost biangulate the back a little bit and over, you know.
We've done that on a couple of patients, but I can honestly say that we have not done a great deal of that, so I can't tell you where that takes us so far. The last guy that we did a biangulated back on was just very recently, and so I don't have feedback yet to know exactly where that's taken us.
So we're talking about the wheelchair, how are we going to access it? The drive access, which will also carry over to some of our technologies later on. What is our access point? What do we have to work with? Do we have hand? Do we have their foot? Are they using their mouth or their head? And I always put on here, don't forget the display, because when we're talking about these alternative drive controls, you need that display.
Again, because we are in the VA and we have less funding issues than the private sector, we try to start our guys out with a display no matter what. And we do that for a couple of reasons. One is we automatically get IR, infrared, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and or Bluetooth, depending on whose chair we use. And also, the cognitive piece of ALS, we're finding that if we can get them doing the menus in an early onset so that they get it kind of a rote condition, that we have better luck later on when we're adding pieces to it or changing their drives, because now they're dealing not only with them getting worse and a new drive, but they have to learn a menu as well. So we try to get the menu piece kind of built into a rote learning activity before we have to progress there.
Yeah, and to carry on with what Randy's saying, we can't forget about the cognitive dysfunction in ALS. About 50% of ALSers will have some frontotemporal dementia characteristics with this diagnosis. Some have like the pseudobulbar effect, things like that. So think of new learning when you have executive function, or executive dysfunction, I should say, and learning. So that has to be part of it too. It's great to have this idea that we want them to have it, but can we teach them how to learn, to teach them how to use it, you know? Okay, so we have some control interfaces. I mean, we know we have a mixed group here of what different control interfaces here. So on this one, starting with the foot.
We've done a lot of these, especially on our bulbar guys, because the legs seem to be one of the last pieces of function that they lose. So we've done a lot of foot drives. We've probably done in the area of 15 to 18 foot drives. And we've done different configurations. This picture actually is one that Permobil has. We also have used mini joysticks with a big ball on the mini joysticks for them to use their toes. The first picture there on the left, that actually shows that he's using a standard joystick, standard throw with a display. This poor gentleman, when he came in, he was walking. By the time we got his chair 8 weeks later, he had fallen and broken his wrist. So he bought in real fast that he needed the wheelchair at that point. The one on the right is actually a micro touch. And we've been successful with this on a couple of guys, but you need that gross movement. Even if they don't have the fine motor skills, if they can put a pressure against that joystick, it'll actually drive the chair without the joystick moving at all. And then, of course, we've got the head arrays. And then we've got one that we're just using on one of our ALS patients right now. It's a mini joystick that I can control the throw. It's a mini that I can adjust the throw even smaller. And so he actually has got really good finger function, so we're going to try him with the mini joy and see how far we can go with it. But again, as you can see, we've got the display even though it's a joystick. So.
Okay. So now we're on to the technology piece. So Randy and I are both on the assistive technology team, and we use an interdisciplinary team for our evaluations. And so we wanted to share our evaluation tool for those that were kind of thinking away from the wheelchair of what technology these folks are using in their home. There it is. Let's get it up there. All right. So again, getting their background, but the needs. We start with a needs assessment. Where is their knowledge now? What are they doing? Sometimes you find out they're not computer users. They just want to talk on the phone. That they could care less about a computer. Now it's probably not the best time to learn computer skills if they're not a computer user, right? But finding out like, hey, what do they want? What do they use in their home? This specific first part of it's about the computer, but we get thorough into what do you access in your home? Do you turn on lights? Are you working a fan? The remote controls, your TV. I mean, what a sense of independence. I do not want to watch this news channel anymore. Change it. I don't have to call for help. Those kind of things. What else is on our? Again, sometimes depending where you see these people in their course of the diagnosis, they might have some things set up. They might be using some technology already. Get an idea of what they're familiar with and what they want to be able to do. Anything else? And the rest of this is just more of our tracking, but it helps you guys follow up. Again, follow up is this population isn't one, call me when you need me. I mean, this is something that you need to be proactive and asking them, saying, I'm going to call you, I'm going to follow up with you. Because time, again, you can't waste time on these things.
Yeah, we tend to call, after we give them assistive technology, we tend to call them in no more than 8 weeks and find out where they are and what difficulties they've found with the equipment that we've done, or have they progressed where they're already seeing some weaknesses happen that they aren't able to access the equipment as easily as they were at the beginning.
Okay, so what are they using? Are they using a cell phone? Are they computer users, tablet users, TV remotes, DVD, things like that? They're electronic devices, their fans, their thermostats, all those can be addressed by technology.
One of the big pieces that we're finding is we want the family involvement too, or caregiver involvement, because, for instance, if they've been using an iPad, then they have a familiarity to it, and they can have that help that's additional with the caregiver in that if they know what the technology we're going to be using is.
And again, access points. How are they using their technology? Are they using their hands, their bulbar? They have dexterity to maneuver a mouse just fine. Are they using text-to-speech, voice recognition, Bluetooth, eye gaze? These are all, different access points for their technology. And I like pictures, so here, I put some up there. And some of you are probably very familiar with some of these, but thinking of, the basic thing of a mouse. Are they using their hand to access it? Are they using their head? One thing to make a point of too is maybe not to overprescribe. Think low-tech first. Do they just need a stylus and a U-cuff in their hand so they can tap something because they don't have that fine dexterity? Overprescribing, device abandonment, we don't need that, and also keeping costs down. You can see a mouse stick on there, a no-button headset for cell phone access without having to touch. And then tying it all together, how are we going to make this technology accessible? Through the control interfaces, the mounts, wheelchair IR, and we're going to address the iDevice and Bluetooth. Okay, mounts.
Go back.
Oh, see, I
one
missed that.
slide.
Sorry.
On the access points, basically when we're looking at the different accesses and to be able to interface the different technologies together, there's some minimal ways we can do it. There's the old X10, which all of you probably know are pretty much extinct now. You can still get it. It's tough, but you can still get it. There's the Insteon. There's Bluetooth. There's Wi-Fi. There's apps. So those are the technologies we're going to access to be able to tie all of them together. The what? But the smartphone uses the apps and the Wi-Fi. Oh, smart home.
Oh, smart home, yes. Okay, so we just put some pictures of different mounts up here. Rolling mounts, advantages here. You can put it, position it over the bed. You could roll up to it in a wheelchair. Pretty easy to use. Versatile in multiple environments, different rooms, things like that. If you want something on the wheelchair, and again, I should preface this, we don't endorse any specific product. We might use some names here, but it's not favoritism or anything like that, just what we have in our little pictures. But for the cell phone, here's a cell phone mount right on the arm of the wheelchair. This one's a RAM mount. The third one over to the right there is a CRTS, Environmental Control Unit. And you see the mount on there. It can be a tabletop, can be on a bed rail, could be on the wheelchair. For them to have access to their environmental control. And then just a tablet mount. That one happens to be mounted on a wheelchair as well. And I think that one's the RAM mount as well.
And again, we look to where they're going to be using these devices at. So more than likely, we'll have multiple mounts for that individual. We'll have it on his chair, on the bed, are the two most common. But we look for those places that they're going to be using it so that we make sure that our mount is accessible to them for where they're going to use it. Okay, IR. Again, the big key for IR, it's anything that uses a remote. Virtually all remotes use IR. And so if you use the wheelchair and you get them an alternative drive method, you've got the display already. What we advocate at the VA, at least our VA, is that we want to get that display right away, again, for that education piece, but it allows us to have access that we wouldn't have. Now, I do know a couple of people that are working in the private sector that they try to do the same thing, but generally speaking, they can't get it funded, but the family is willing to pay for it at this early stage so that their quality of life is better. So this is a Curtis and an RNet. The IR is actually built into the display itself. Going a little bit further, the Bluetooth is built into the Curtis display. So you have access for the Bluetooth as well as the IR in the Curtis display.
Okay.
This is the new iDevice that's available through Permobil. And we're going to have a display here that you guys can go through and look at. In fact, I see it rolling in now. Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate it.
It accesses the Apple systems in the chair so that you can use a switching system in the chair to access Apple. And we've been playing with it, and we've had some pretty good luck with it. I mean, it's been really, really fantastic for us. And then, of course, the Bluetooth is the other module that you see up there for RNet, and that allows you to do mouse simulation with computer access and that with the other, and switch access with the other technologies that we interface with.
All right. Okay, so we have some case studies that we'd like to share with you and kind of get our heads going here. So our first case study, we have a 70-year-old diagnosed with bulbar ALS in March of 2013. He presented to our clinic with leg weakness, but swelling problems with choking and weak cough. So it started with the client's goals. He really wanted independence with driving. He needed optimal respiratory support, and he wanted to use his computer more effectively.
Now, not to say that those goals were all that the clinicians came out with. We had many more, but those were the ones that he really defined, and that's, to him, that was quality of life for him. So we wanted to make sure that we captured those. The first picture is when he was the first chair that he had, and again, it did have recline on it. But we had a vent tray on it, and he was able to drive it and access driving with the joystick, standard joystick. The next picture, we saw him about a year later, or almost exactly a year later, and he was losing the upper extremity functions. And so at that point in time, we added the display, and we also had the goalpost with the joystick with the full throws on the joystick.
And so he was a gentleman with a bulbar. He had intact hand function on here. So as far as his computer access, he was able to use a standard mouse on there. Recently, though, we went to the Bluetooth mouse for him because of the declining hand function.
Yeah, we just actually are waiting for his chair to be assembled right now. He actually has ECU access on the chair. He has Bluetooth. He has the iDevice. And
To be coming.
yeah, it's not here yet, so that's why we don't have any pictures of it there. But so again, it was about a year later that, or not a year, it was about 7 months that we saw him again.
Yeah. All right, for our second case study, we have a gentleman who's 72, diagnosed with limb onset ALS in 2003. So he's one of our outliers. Going on 12 years now, so really great. So when you see these client goals on there, why we put up all the dates, it's a reevaluation constantly to kind of see what's happening at one stage. He's not having as rapid decline as our other ones, but still that ongoing evaluation is critical to meet his needs and to be ahead of the curve and try to get him what he needs before he needs it.
And as you can see, the last one, the computer access, he actually chose to use a mouse stick for the touch screen. So that's what he was using up until just recently, and we did an evaluation in February, and he is now going to have the Bluetooth module in his joystick. He drives with a head array, and so we're actually using it as the head array as his joystick driving, or his mouse driving. So this is him in September of 2009. He wouldn't let us do a great deal. He didn't want any laterals. He didn't want any arm supports. So it was a little bit of a struggle. He was one of the guys that we had to do some real disease education with. And then in August 2012, we did a head array system for him to drive with. He's got still function in his legs, so he actually does the switching at his knees, but he does drive with the head array. The last picture is a chair that just arrived. We again are finishing the assembly on that, but he actually has, on this one we have ECU, a ECU box on this, the iDrive, and Bluetooth too, because he's going to use the Bluetooth for his desktop, and then he's going to use the iDrive for his phone.
And funding. Gosh, I wish I had $1 million. So what can we do? What can we do for those folks that are non-VA who don't have the benefit of a brand new chair. You know, this is where knowing your suppliers, knowing your vendors, getting your voice out there, be an advocate for your client. No, if you don't talk to your ALS association, call them. See what they have available. I found it's super valuable to me to go have a meeting with my ALS association in Denver to find out what they have. Some of these organizations will have loaner chairs. Now, if you're talking that you can't order a chair and get it reimbursed because the client doesn't need that function yet, maybe putting them in a loaner chair at first until they absolutely need that next part. You can justify what you need in your medical justification for Medicare. Muscular Dystrophy Association, there's money out there asking. Sometimes it's with the communication devices, but all of these things kind of have an overlap with ALS. Volunteers of America, service organizations in your community, local organizations, ask. Sometimes there's grant money, there's things like that. We're talking maybe a seat elevator would make a difference in a person's life, and it's not a high price item. You might be able to get that donated. We have wonderful wheelchair companies. A lot of them have in their budget to do some donations. Ask, talk to your vendors. I mean, this is where, you know, the passion and the compassion comes out for our clients who can't afford it, to see what we can get them to improve that quality of life, because these things can make a significant difference in their lives.
Also, one note that we wanted to make sure that we brought up was we would encourage you all to see your patients at the worst possible time. The longer in the day, the tireder they are, because then you get some real limitations that you can document. If you document that during your evaluation, the face-to-face, then you're able to get more funding.
And then, just for our passion for veterans, we had a YouTube video that we wanted to share with you, kind of tying this all together, the benefit of the technology in different environments and all the adaptations.
Was a 13-year veteran of the Army and was diagnosed with ALS in August of 2010. He worked at Walter Reed Hospital as an advocate of wounded warriors and worked with the first quadriplegic coming home from Iraq. This life-changing diagnosis caused he and his wife Jacqueline to accelerate their dream plans of moving to Florida. Robert and his family are some of the most courageous people I know. The Veterans Administration purchased our autonomy residential unit for Robert due to its flexibility to meet Robert's immediate and future needs. We joined Robert in late 2011 while he is using his voice with backup sip and puff switch to control his environment and show us how he used some of his computer functions.
Foot up. Power. Power. Favorites. FX. Jump home. Sharp controls. Power. Power. Jump home. Volume up. Discovery. Jump home. Computer activities. Free cell. Jump home. Internet activities. Facebook home. Profile. Messages.
In August of 2012, we went back to Robert's home. His condition had changed. He is now on a ventilator with no use of his voice. He is now using our autonomy system through IntelliGaze iGaze input with a sip and puff switch backup. We also added a wall mount arm to replace the original rolling cart. We rejoin Robert while he is calibrating his eye camera. Once recalibrated to his eyes, Robert shows us how he can use his unit with the eye control to turn on and off his lights, turn on the television, play movies,
So we're going to skip forward a little bit to later on with Robert here. Is it 6:30? Okay.
I made countless ways.
During 2012, VA Tampa asked us for additional equipment to allow Robert to use the autonomy residential unit while in his wheelchair. Robert gets up and moves to his wheelchair. We show how easy it is to move his autonomy unit with him. Robert uses his chin control to drive his wheelchair, and now using Bluetooth also uses it to control the autonomy. Now in his family room, Robert can watch movies and do everything such as Facebook and augmentative communication, just as he did while he was in bed. Robert wishes to communicate something to us he wrote last night.
This system is great. It has given me back much of the independence that I lost. There are endless custom configurations and an incredible staff that are always available to answer questions and modify my settings. The Orlando and Tampa VA facilities have been instrumental in providing me with this and other assistive technology devices.
We wish to thank Robert and his family for allowing us into their home. His hopes are to be able to share his experiences with veterans and others that may find themselves in similar circumstances.
So that's Robert on there. Wow, telling, huh? What a difference assistive technology made in his life. And everything, all the things that went into that video of the mounts, the technology, how he's using it. Did you see anyone helping him do all those things? He got to play games, his quality of life, what is important to him. He could play games, he could email, he could use Facebook. And other than the setup of moving it from one device, from the bed to the chair, I mean, really can make a significant difference. That's it.
You want to have Dave come up?
Okay. Did we miss any questions along the way? We're going to have another demonstration come up, but...
I had a question. You guys said, I know that the VA operates a lot different than obviously Medicare and private insurances. And purely out of curiosity, you said that some clients only get like a tilt-only chair at some point. And given the progressive nature of ALS and what it requires and them already qualifying for the base, why does the VA not do tilt and recline or power leg rest all at the same time for them?
Well, at first, we were concerned about them coming out of position and that causing us problems with their posture. So originally, we weren't. We are now. Almost. Now, again, there's no, you can't put them in a box. So each individual is different. So there are some people that we don't do elevates with, and there are some people that we don't do reclines with, just because of who they are and the other pieces that they've got going on. But for the majority of them, our standard is to do all power functions now.
Great. Chad, you didn't know this is your exercise session today. No, it's good. Because the Gaylord's not big enough for you, so you need to come to our session.
I'm in an ALS clinic, not part of the VA. And so what people might want to think about for those folks with ALS that are progressing fairly quickly through all the different drives is not having to go back to insurance to get, like if you switch from your hand to your foot to your head to whatever, and do one of the, a number of companies have drive control packages where you purchase the package once and then you basically call them up and say, now we're ready to switch to the foot, and they ship that out to you. So you're not having to go back to Medicare or private insurance 16 times and wait that period of time, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, for the new piece to get approved or not approved. And just to think about the drive control packages.
That's great. I think it's a great point to bring up. Questions? Then we'll introduce you.
Hi, I've got a VA funding question. Is all this being done through prosthetics? I know the chair is being done through prosthetics. I guess, the home modification stuff, is that being done through a HISA grant, or is that straight through prosthetics? Or does PVA get involved?
Yep, absolutely.
What does what?
Yeah.
Yes to all of it.
Yes, yes, and yes. To answer your question as far as what for the home modifications, there's different grants, and this is our VA folks, so I apologize for non-VA, but there is the HISA grant, the Home Improvement Structural Grant they can apply for, but with the 100% service connection, that is through the VBA, the Benefits Administration, and so we're trying to fast track those folks and work with our PVA service officers to get them through that system and get the special adaptive housing grant going, because that's a much larger pot of money to work with, as HIS is a lot smaller. So having that advocate and knowing your service officers in the PVA, that's been helpful in the Denver area as far as getting it through the Benefits Administration to get them their grant.
But as far as the equipment itself, the chair, the eye device, any of those pieces, we're actually running it through prosthetics. The mounts, all that is going through prosthetics.
I have a question also about VA stuff. I'm wondering, I'm seeing a lot of great equipment at this convention, and there's the mobile universal arm supports that I saw that some of my bulbar and limb people could really benefit from. But my question to you guys is this. Certainly I'm used to, when we give you a chair, it's your chair. What you choose to do with it when you don't need it anymore, it's your choice to make. That's what our local interpretation of federal guidelines is. With all these new pieces of equipment and the mobile arm supports that are $22,000 and all that stuff, are you guys considering doing anything at your VA where it's like, these are the pieces of, this is your chair, these are the pieces of equipment we're putting on your chair. When you no longer need them, we're going to put them in our closet, and you can have this, or does that not work at any VA?
What we've done at the Denver VA, again, I can only speak for what we've done. As all of you in the VA system know, you've been to one VA, you've been to one VA.
Yes, I agree.
But at the Denver VA, what we try to do is we try to work with the family and tell them that, we know that this could be a very short-term thing, and that if they would like to donate the equipment back to us, we would be able to reuse it in a majority of the cases. But like, for instance, Ernie, our guy that's been going for 12 years now, we haven't taken any of his equipment back because he's still motoring with it, and he wears them out because he's out there doing things. So we try, but we don't take the technology and necessarily put it in our storage closet for like evals and that, because technology is moving so quickly that we're finding that the stuff that we had 2 years ago is outdated. So we aren't using it in that aspect, but if it's got enough base and it's new enough, then we'll try to reissue it to another veteran. Yeah.
I'm a veteran who's worked with local VA and business up down in Miami for a long time. And I just recently asked the same question regarding loan equipment to help facilitate training individuals until their equipment can come in because of the purchasing process now. And it seems to be an issue with the loan letters, that they can't really put those out anymore. So it is a volunteer type of thing. And then it's a matter of the prosthetics department on whether they want to deal with reissuing equipment and having it refurbished, or whether they have the people either in the institution or a vendor that's willing to do it for a price that they're wanting.
Yeah, we have a unique situation in our VA. We have a wheelchair program that employs multiple people. We're a little low. I'm giving a plug to my supervisor, trying to get him to. But we have the people in our facility that actually can go through the equipment, make sure that it's safe, that it's good, and that it's usable. So we have an advantage in that aspect. Some of the VAs do not have the ability to do that because they just have the clinician themselves. So yeah, it's a matter of working with the prosthetics, the clinician, and being able to make sure the equipment is usable and safe.
Do you have any type of documentation on that program?
That we're doing?
Yeah.
Are you talking about how we inspect the equipment?
The documentation allows you to bring it back in, and how you utilize the people to do that, because I'd like to present it down to the spinal cord unit down there.
We really don't have anything written up. It's just it's an agreement between prosthetic and us. Yeah, right now we don't. So
we have a little bit more. We're very fortunate to have Permobile down here. We're very excited about the iDevice, and Dave was gracious to come over with one of the wheelchairs with the new iDevice on here. So I know we're in a really big group, and to see it, and unfortunately we can't get it up on the screen, so if people want to come up to the front, kind of check out what the iDevice is all about. We'll kind of do a little show and tell up here if you want to hover around it, or wherever you can see.
If you're not familiar with the integration of the wheelchair to the Apple products has been a dilemma. And what Permobile has done is they've been working very closely with Penny and Giles, and they now have a switching device that we can interface with the Apple products. And so because Apple is so prevalent right now in the marketplace, it gives us an extra advantage to be able to use the existing technology that they actually have in their home and have been using, so they aren't learning something totally new. So that's why we're so excited about it. So if you
Just on a new basis, or do you go back to an M300 or a C500 and put on?
Yeah, you can retrofit it to any RNet system.
Yeah, and that's any RNet system. We've already interfaced it with some of the Quickie products. So it's anything that's got the P&G RNet system.
Awesome. All right.
All right.